Anti-Caste SF by BLAFT Publications. I hope you can see it here. And on the blurb, it says, an anthology of weird, fantastic, supernatural, Dalit futurist and magical realist fiction by writers from South Asia and the diaspora. And if you haven't got a copy yet, please make sure to get one because, you know, the Phantom Letter is wonderful, but all the other stories are also really exciting and they speak to each other in really interesting ways. And in today's conversation with Divya Kalavala and Priteegandha Naik, Gogu Shyamala will discuss how the form of speculative fiction is very well suited to explore caste contradictions in order to create anti-caste literature, as well as a history of contemporary conditions. So a few more words about the participants. Dr. Gogu Shyamala is one of the foremost contemporary Dalit writers in India, as an award-winning author, researcher, editor, and biographer writing in Telugu. A collection of short stories, Father May Be an Elephant and Mother Only a Small Basket, but in English translation is a landmark in Indian literature, and of course also in Telugu. Among her publications are anthologies of Dalit women's writings in Telugu and the biography of the first Dalit woman legislator, T.N. Sadalakshmi, in the former state of Andhra Pradesh in India. She's also the co-editor of the Oxford Anthology of Telugu Dalit Writing in English, and she holds a PhD in the area of Dalit women biographies, gender and caste in Telangana from the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad, or IFLU. She studies Dalit women's literature and the history and mythology of Dalit literature more widely. And she also collects palm leaf manuscripts of Dalit Puranas for contemporary scholarly studies. And we saw we got a glimpse into this at the festival in Hyderabad 2 years ago for the CADALFEST series there. Dr. Divya Kalavala is an academic and translator, and here in her capacity as translator. So thank you, Divya, for doing this for us. She also holds a doctoral degree in film studies from IFLU, and she's been teaching at Manipal Academy of Higher Education in Bengaluru. Divya translates from her mother tongue, Telugu, into English and is primarily interested in translating literary texts from the margins as a form of political solidarity, and she's held several scholarships, fellowships, to this end. Dr. Priteegandha Naik is an assistant professor at the Mukesh Patel School of Technology Management and Engineering at NMIMS University, where she teaches communication skills and other humanity-centric courses. She's interested in exploring caste and gender in Indian science fiction, and in particular, she has worked on Dalit futurism and on understanding Dalit futures in speculative fiction, art, literature, and film, and their consequent relevance to the anti-caste movement. And if you would like to know more, Preeti has given a wonderful introduction to this in last year's CADALFEST festival in June. For more information about the participants and other events in this year's CADALFEST series, please visit the Bonington Gallery's website and our network's website. This CADALFEST series is funded by Nottingham Trent University, the University of Montpellier, Paul Valéry, and Bonington Gallery. Today's session, as always, we will begin with a conversation and followed by a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put them in the live chat or follow the instructions in the live chat. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to warmly thank Gogu, Preeti and Divya for this event. I know you've been planning it for quite a while and it has been in the making even longer. So I'm so delighted that it's finally happening. And I would also like to thank Bonington Gallery for organizing this event with us. Thank you, Alex. But now over to you, Preeti.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for that introduction and for the introduction of the event and the festival as well. So we begin with a very short reading out of the novelette between Gogu ma'am and Divya, so that we understand how the translation could actually be a dance as well. So over to you, Divya and Gogu ma'am.
Thank you, Preeti. Gogu ma'am will start now.
Okay. This is the Phantom Ladder. Begin with the conversation between two friends, Malini and Sugandhini. Malini from Brahmin community, Sugandhi from Dalit Dakkali community. Hey, inkem Swagatam Pelli Kudra antu rendu చేతులు చాచి మాలినిని ఆలింగనం చేసుకుంది సుగంధి. అదే సుగా నేను ఆలోచిస్తున్నది. ఒక విషయాన్ని ప్రత్యేకంగా నీతో మాట్లాడాలనుకుంటున్నా. అదే ఇప్పుడు ఒక పెద్ద సమస్యనో లేక చిన్న ఊగిసలాటనో నాకు అర్థం కావడం లేదు. సమస్య అయితే వచ్చింది, చెప్పింది ఎప్పటి నుండో ఎదురు చూస్తున్న మాలిని. ఇన్ని శుభ సూచనలు ఉండగా నీకు ఊగిసలాటెందుకు అని ప్రశ్నార్థకంగా చూసింది. నాకు కుజదోషం ఉందట. దీనితో చాలా అనర్థాలట, అవాంఛితాలు దాపరిస్తాయట. చేసుకున్నోడికి కీడు అంట. మామూలు కీడు కాదు, ప్రాణగండం ఉంటదట. లేదా తనకు కూడా ఈ దోషం ఉంటే పెళ్లి చేసుకోవచ్చునట మేమిద్దరం. లేదా ఈ దోషం ఉంటే నాకెన్ని గొప్ప లక్షణాలున్నా అదంతా దండగేనట అని విస్మయంగా చెప్పింది మాలిని. ఆహా, అదేంటే నీవు కూడా అని కాసేపు ఏమి మాట్లాడకుండా ఉండిపోయింది మాలిని. కొద్దిసేపటికి తానే నిభాయించుకొని, ఇలాంటి వాటిని నువ్వు పరిగణలోకి తీసుకుంటావా అంటే నమ్ముతావా అని ఆశ్చర్యంగా అడిగింది సుగంధి. నాకు నేనుగా దాన్ని పట్టించుకోను, కానీ నా ప్రమేయం లేకుండానే అది నెత్తి మీద గుదిబండలా కాదని ఏం నమ్మకం అంటూ సుగంధిని దీనంగా చూసింది మాలిని. ఇది నిజంగానే అడ్డంకి అవుతుందని నువ్వు కంగారు పడుతున్నావా? ఈ నమ్మకం పట్ల శేఖర్కు ఉన్న అభిప్రాయాన్ని తెలుసుకునేంత వరకు ఈ విషయాన్ని అంతా పట్టించుకోవాల్సిన అవసరం లేదనుకుంటా. ఎందుకంటే నువ్వు అన్ని విధాలా తనకు నచ్చినవు. ఆ తర్వాత ఈ కుజదోషం విషయం అతనికి పెద్ద సమస్య అవుతుందా నువ్వు నచ్చిన తర్వాత? అదే వాస్తవం అయితే నీవు శేఖర్కి అస్సలు నచ్చకూడదు కదా, అనుమానం వ్యక్తం చేసింది సుగంధిని. అది నిజమే, ఇప్పటి వరకు వాళ్ళల్లో జాతకం చూడలేదనుకుంటా. మా సంబంధం గురించి ప్రస్తావన శేఖర్ నుండి వెళ్ళింది కనుక జాతకం ప్రక్రియ ఇంకా జరగలేదు. అందుకే జాతకం చూడలేదు. పెళ్లి ముహూర్తం నిర్ణయించేటప్పుడు ఫార్మాలిటీలో భాగంగా జాతకం చూస్తారు. ఇక అప్పుడు ఈ విషయం తెలిస్తే అమ్మో ఏం లేదు, ఇక అటు తన కుటుంబంలో ఇటు మా కుటుంబంలో ఈ సంబంధాన్ని రద్దు చేస్తారు. అట్లా రద్దు చేస్తారేమనే భయం నన్ను వెంటాడుతూ ఉంది అంటూ బేల ముఖం పెట్టింది మాలిని. జరగబోయే శుభకార్యాల్లో ఈ విషాదాలేమిటే? అయినా ఈ కుజదోషం అనేది అర్థం లేని నమ్మకం. మనం దాన్ని నమ్మేదాన్ని బట్టి దాని ప్రాధాన్యత ఉంటుంది. శేఖరు మామూలోడు కాదు, శేఖర్ విద్యావంతుడు. అందులో సైన్స్ ఆధారిత వృత్తిలో ఉన్న డాక్టర్ కదా. తాను కూడా మన లెక్క దీన్ని నమ్మకపోవచ్చు. నీవంతగా ఊహించుకొని ఇప్పుడే బాధపడకే. ఇంకా పెళ్లి తేదీ చాలా రోజులు ఉంది, నిర్ణయించాల్సిన సమయం కూడా ఉంది. ఎప్పుడో ఏదో అవుతుందని ఇప్పుడే కంగారు పడడు అవసరమా? అది ఈ కుజదోషానికి. అదృష్టం కొద్దీ శేఖర్కు కూడా మనలాగే దాని పట్ల నమ్మకం లేదనుకో, ఇక సమస్యనే ఉండదు అనుకుంటూ మాలిని ముఖం మీద గాలికి పారాడుతున్న నల్ల జుట్టును పైకి సర్దుతూ ఓదారుస్తూ చెప్పింది సుగంధి. అవును, అలా జరిగితే బాగుండు, కానీ ఆయన అమ్మనాన్నలు దోషాన్ని నమ్మొచ్చు కదా, అది సమస్య కాదంటవా? మళ్ళీ అనుమానం వ్యక్తం చేసింది మాలిని. అయితే శేఖర్కు పెళ్లి చేసుకునే ఆలోచన ఇంతట్లా లేదని మాత్రం తెలుసు. అతనికి నేను ఇష్టమే, కానీ పెళ్లి కోసం టైం ఇంకా కొద్దిగా తీసుకోవాలని ఆలోచిస్తున్నాడు. ఇప్పుడు తాను ఎంబీబీఎస్ ఫైనల్లో చదువుతున్నాడు కనుక చదువు ముగించుకొని సంవత్సరం పాటు ఉద్యోగం చేసి ఆ తర్వాత పెళ్లి చేసుకోవాలనే తన ఆలోచన వాళ్ళ ఇంటిలో, మా ఇంటిలో మాత్రం వెంటనే పెళ్లి జరిపించాలని అనుకుంటున్నారు వివరించింది మాలిని. శేఖర్ సంవత్సరం ఆగుదామంటాడు కదా, మరి నువ్వేమంటున్నావు అడిగింది సుగంధి. నేను ఆగుదామనుకున్నా, ఎందుకంటే నేను పిహెచ్డిలో జాయిన్ అవుదామనుకున్నా. ఒకవేళ మా వాళ్ళోళ్ళు ఒత్తిడి చేస్తే సరేలే పెళ్లి చేసుకుందామనుకున్నా. కానీ ఇప్పుడు మాత్రం ఏం చేయాలో అర్థం కావడం లేదు. ఈ కుజదోషం చేయబట్టి గందరగోళంగా ఉంది. పెళ్లి చేసుకోవాలంటేనే భయంగా ఉంది. అందుకే నీతో మాట్లాడొచ్చు అనుకున్నా అని చెప్పింది. సమాధానం కోసం సుగంధిని చూసింది. అంత సజావుగా ఉన్నట్లే అనిపించే. ఇప్పుడేమో ఈ కుజదోషం కాళ్ళలా కట్టెల్లాగా అడ్డం పడుతుంది అని మనసులోనే అనుకుంటూ సుగంధి బీరిపోయి చూస్తూ ఉండిపోయింది. ఆమెకు ఏం మాట్లాడాలో అర్థం కాలేదు. థ్యాంక్ యూ. అయిపోయింది.
Thank you. Now I will read the translated version of the same. And this is a conversation between Malini and Sugandhi, the two characters from the novelette. Let's get back to talking about our lives. Yes, all right, but there's one thing that's been bothering me, Malini said. I haven't been able to make up my mind about it. I've been meaning to discuss it with you. What is it? Apparently, I have something called a Kuja dosham. A Kuja what? Wait, you don't believe in astrology, do you? Besides, what does that even mean? It has to do with the placement of planets in my birth chart, Mars in particular. It's considered inauspicious for marriage. People believe it will cause marital disharmony. If either one of the bride or the groom has a Kuja dosham in their birth charts, then both of them should have it. Or else, it's not going to work out in the long term for the man. Do you really consider such things? Asked a shocked Sugandhi. I don't normally, but how can I be sure this won't end up wrecking my fate? I'm worried, said Malini, looking helplessly at Sugandhi. Do you really think it's such a big deal? I don't think you should bother about it much until you get to know what Shekhar thinks. You're right, but as things proceed, as per Hindu marriage conventions, they will definitely look at my birth chart and his birth chart and try to match them. And then it's going to be a big problem. I'm sure if either of our families get to know about it, they will cancel their alliance instantly. There was a look of despair on Malini's face. Why all these dire predictions? Look, Shekhar is well educated. He has a science background. I don't think we should be bothered about it. I'm sure he doesn't believe in any of it. Let's wait to hear from him first. There's still time before the date of the wedding is decided. If he's like us and he doesn't buy into all of these superstitions, then we can avoid the conversation altogether. Let's not get ahead of ourselves by creating imaginary scenarios. In any case, Shekhar isn't in a hurry to get married right away, is he? He has to finish his final year of MBBS. He's planning to wait for another year after he gets a job, right? What do you say? Yes, I'm okay with waiting a year for the wedding. I'm planning to enroll in a PhD program myself, so the wait is good for me. But ever since I got to know about this astrological affliction, I can't help but wonder if it will hinder our plans. I'm worried, even if Shekhar doesn't care, won't it be an issue to his parents? Earlier, I wasn't in a hurry, but after I learned about this Kujadosham, I can't stop thinking about it. I've been waiting to discuss this with you to get your opinion.
Thank you, Divya, and thank you, ma'am. This is such an interesting story. Before we proceed, I'll just quickly summarize what the novelette is about. So the novelette is about 4 main characters. We have Malini and Sugandhi, who are best friends, but they are from 2 different sections of society altogether. Malini is a Brahmin from a deeply religious family. And Sugandhi is a Dalit from the Dakhali community. And her father is a first-generation learner, and her family is involved in restoring and preserving palm leaf manuscripts, which deal with the Dakhali community and their cultural practices. So Malini is dating Shekhar, as we just saw, and has recently discovered the existence of Kuja Dosham in her Hindu birth chart. And since, quote unquote, the dosham affects the husband's or the wife's health after marriage, she is worried about Shekhar's reception to this news. As the story progresses, we understand that Shekhar has been deeply influenced by his grandpa's perspectives on the importance and pride of being a Brahmin, so much so that it affects his dietary choices, his culture, his life, and a lot of decisions that he takes in his life. Post this discussion with Malini, where Malini reveals that she has Kuja Dosham, Shekhar ends up getting a dream sequence where he engages in conversation with caste as a personification itself, which highlights how caste often functions as a stool for some. Caste functions as a chameleon in the story itself, because the story highlights how it can function as a stool for some, where you sit comfortably and you enjoy all the benefits that the position of accords you, or it can function as a burden for some, because you have to end up carrying it on your head, and therefore you are not able to avail the same opportunities you would have if you would be sitting instead of carrying the load on your head. Interestingly, it is Shekhar's dietary choices influenced by his Brahmin status, which would probably ultimately lead to a decline in health after marriage, because this has a cumulative effect since he refuses to eat proteins despite doctor's instructions. And it is this connection that I believe is where the science fiction element comes in the strongest, because it's the satire of it that helps us realize that it's science and not astrology that will determine how your life proceeds. So, and it's a wonderful story. I think I've been fangirling over this story since last year. So this was absolutely wonderful that we got to do this. And what I'm also interested in understanding, and I'm sure a lot of us are also interested in understanding, is how the translation process was actually undertaken, because the length of the story that Gogu ma'am read out and the length that you read out, this is again a very superficial take, but it was very different. So if you could shed a little light on how the translation happened from both your perspectives, it would be great.
I'll quickly begin and then I'll ask Gogu ma'am to talk about it. So this was an interesting project. It was a commissioned project. We were initially asked to, Dr. Gogu was initially asked to write a story, and then I was asked to translate towards the end of 2023. And interestingly, I worked on this on my translation fellowship early 2024, and it was published in December 2024. And so I call this interesting, not only because it's speculative fiction that I was looking at for the first time, the writer was looking at for the first time, but it was all the more interesting from my position, also because I got to have this window into to see the kind of ideations and the process, not just from the writer, but also from the editor and from the publishing perspective. So being part of both these spaces was very, very interesting, both in general and as a translator as well. So to just get back to the question that you've asked me in terms of the length of it, this is a translator's choice, that there are certain details that you can go into in regional language that I have felt that become slightly excessive and repetitive, when all of them get translated into English. So you take a creative choice at that as a translator to omit some minor details that may look repetitive. That is about the length. But otherwise, in general, I think this has been, by then I had already started working on another translation by Dr. Gogu. And so I had that practice and deliberations and thinking about stories and understanding it thematically and sometimes understanding certain words as well. Even though Telugu is my mother tongue, because of the regional differences, there's a huge difference in terms of dialect and certain words. So it depends on the project. This project did not require for me to understand a lot of words. They were not alien to me. It was also in the contemporary time and young people as characters. So the takeaway for me as a translator would be about these conversations and being in the middle between an editor and a writer. So for instance, I'll just end with giving one example in this regard, which is that one of the characters called Kulam. Kulam is essentially caste in Telugu. So initially, I had written it as caste itself. I translated Kulam, and then this was Rakesh Khanna, who's one of the editor, who suggested that we retain the word, and I thought it was a brilliant suggestion, and I immediately took it. But of course, there were some pushbacks as well. There were some explanations as to why I wouldn't change certain things, because it changes the entire meaning of the particular context. And then another small example would be about because as I said, this was very new in terms of looking at speculative fiction. We had a different ending. Dr. Gogu had ended it very differently. And then, of course, there were these deliberations about how it doesn't fall into the speculative fiction genre. And then this brilliant ending came about from Dr. Gogu, which was, I was very happy to see that and translate it as well. I'll end there. Over to you, Gogu ma'am.
Yeah. One concept is there. It's said by Ambedkar, when cultivates minds, ఎప్పుడైతే మైండ్ పనిచేస్తుందో అప్పుడు సొసైటీ అడ్వాన్స్ అవుతుంది అనేది ఇంగ్లీష్లో చెప్పారు. ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ it made the story given me a scope to cultivate my mind, how to think, how to conceptualize, how to present story, through which language, through which person, from which community, which context. This is I did so experimentally. Finally, science fiction speculation I took based on science, because science caste system is not science or material, but people explores like natural and material. It's a natural issue people explores, but caste is not science, not material. It's a ideology people make like mind game. I know very well that concept. We should turn it as story through based on science. And also one of the eminent one of the eminent poet. 1930s, he wrote one sloka. What he wrote, interestingly, in Telugu, ఎవరు ఎవరికి పుట్టినరో నాకు తెలియదు కానీ నేనైతే మా అమ్మ నాన్నలకే పుట్టినా అంటాడు, మా అయ్య అవ్వలకే పుట్టినా అని అంటాడు అనమాట. గుర్రం జాషువా ఆయన సటైర్గా ఏంటంటే ఆ టైంలో ఉన్న కాంటెంపరీ రైటర్స్, బ్రాహ్మణ్ రైటర్స్, వాళ్ళు చెప్పుకోవడము రాయడము, మేము బ్రహ్మ నోటిలో నుండి పుట్టినాము, బ్రహ్మదేవుడి నోటిలో నుండి పుట్టినాము అని బ్రాహ్మణ్స్ చెప్పుకోవడము. అట్లాగే క్షత్రియులు మేము భుజబలము ఉన్న బ్రహ్మ భుజాలలో నుండి పుట్టినము అని, వైశ్యులు బ్రహ్మ కడుపులో నుండి పుట్టినామని, అట్లా మిగతా వాళ్ళని కాళ్ళలో నుండి అట్లా చూపిస్తారు అనమాట. దాన్ని అంత రాడికల్గా అప్పుడు రాయడము గుర్రం జాషువా, అది కూడా సో సెటైరికల్గా, ఎవడికి పుట్టిండో మాకు తెలియదు కానీ మేమైతే మా అమ్మ నాన్నలకే పుట్టినాము అనడం. ఐఎమ్ సో థ్రిల్డ్ యాక్చువల్లీ విత్ దిస్. సో ఐ టుక్ that also in this story. So I elaborated the caste ladder, that's the phantom ladder, 4 rungs in the ladder: Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishya. So other writings are also helped me in the from Telugu. People wrote critically, satirically about this birth from Brahma. I used all these in this story. And caste is what is the caste is this question. Different people thinks differently. Every people will give different concept to caste. Caste is so good, and some people, caste is so good. Caste is ethnicity of India. Caste is comes from Vedas, ancient, like that. Naturalizing the caste system, and caste connect the culture. Caste connects the people's character, people's life, not just Dalit life, also Brahmin life. Brahmin women, men, all. Caste decides what you eat, what we eat. Caste decides what not eat, what should not eat. Caste decides. And Kujadosham also, it's a regarding to caste system. Because I don't know this actually. What is the Kujadosham? I don't have any knowledge. But I got knowledge when I living in Hyderabad. I'm working with literary movements and students movements, studying in higher education. That time I got this knowledge. Because why this much late in my after 40s I got information about Kujadosha. That is trigger in my mind, because it is not my culture. Kujadosham is not Dalit culture. There is no concept of Kujadosham. It's only for Brahmin. It's only for Brahmin people. But they imposed, it's a universal concept. They imposed, they propagates. It's a universal. It's applicable to every person. No, Dalits and Adivasis and artisan communities. Artisan communities means Sabbanda communities, potters, goldsmith, ironsmiths, weaving communities, Gauda, Tadi tappers. These communities also, they don't have this concept, Kujadosham. So the Kujadosham made life horribly for Brahmin women. Some are examples are there, some stories are there. Yeah, this is not Dalit issue, but it's a caste issue. Is there suffering Dalits only from caste system? No, all people are suffering from caste system. Why should people trying to protect the caste system? That is also one of the question. So I took caste as co-human. What if caste is person? What if not only person? Sometimes caste is demon for Dalits. Earlier, when we study the Manusmriti making Dalits demons. Dalits are not even human beings. I used that tool for caste. Caste is sometimes it's a demon for society, and it's human for society. When it is human, we can have conversation with caste. When we feel a demon, we can argue, we can counter and critical with casteism. So Brahmin also, who are the propagating caste, they are also human being. They are also human being, but they don't know they are human being. They don't know they are human being when they have caste system, caste mind. So these are so many complex politics, complex thoughts in this caste system. So I have so many confusions, so many questions, but I got chance through this story. I wrote experimentally. It in within discussion we got clarity, so much discussion with Divya, and Rakesh Khanna also discussed with Divya. Yeah, we improved concept on speculation fiction, how to write speculation fiction in the caste system. We improved some extents, not so much, some extents. Yeah, this is new new step for me. I wrote that story. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gogu. I will quickly translate what she just said. So she begins with talking about how Ambedkar had, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar had said something on the lines of, for the advancement of society, cultivation of mind is something that is required. So she said that I have cultivated my mind by going out of my usual practice of writing in certain genres and experimenting and exploring a newer one when the opportunity sort of arrived. So it gave her the opportunity to play with the characters, the plot, and the setting. And this sort of experiment sort of gave way to her contribution in this speculative fiction and science and speculative fiction. And she goes on to talk about how caste system in general, the common understanding of caste system, is something that is attributed it's normalized. It is something that is natural. It's material, and it is science based to an extent that it is considered in that way. Whereas that is not so. It is a very ideological mind game, or ideological illusion, as she said in another context about caste system. That is what she was trying to say in terms of understanding caste system, which is already normalized. And so she wanted to come back, and it is not based on science, but it is looked at in that sense. And she goes on to talk about her inspirations of one of the popular poets like Guram Joshua in the 1930s, and he quotes from his poem, one of his poem, where he says something on the lines of, "I don't know who you were born to, but I was born to my parents. I was born to my mother and father." And he says this in the context of how the contemporaries of his times are the poets who would generally talk about how Brahmins are born from Brahma, and that is rooted in the larger context of religion, and in situating the caste system as well. So she talks about how that was so inspirational for her. And this is not just about making a statement. It was absolutely radical to be saying something like that, and very satirical as well. So it was a very thrilling experience to have been exposed to something like that, is what she said. And she sort of took that inspiration from there, and she sort of elaborates the very same thing in her story, where she talks about creates caste as a ladder, and creates all the castes in it in the story. And she also talks about other writings as inspirations as well, like this one that she's taken inspiration from. And she goes on to talk about the very same thing about caste being naturalized. Several people have different definitions of what caste essentially is. Some look at it as connected with Vedas, as an ancient history, as a natural form. And naturalizing caste system in discourse is something that happens constantly. So and precisely why she wanted to write about this. And then she moves on to talk about Kujadosham. That is the central part in the story. Yes. He wanted to say something, Dr. Gogu?
People defines caste system as ethnicity of India.
Right. Okay. So different definitions which sort of lead to naturalization of the existence of caste. And she also talks about Kujidoshan, and she talks about how she never knew about this while growing up, but only in her 40s, when she moved to Hyderabad to work, she was exposed to university spaces, literary circles, and higher education people, which is when she heard about this, and that stuck with her. And she talks about how it is not a Dalit culture. It is not something that doesn't exist in other cultures, other Adivasi cultures or Sabanda communities. Sabanda communities, as in artisan communities. In Telugu, they refer to as Panipata communities. People who come from those communities do not have an exposure to something like this. And this is just an example, but this is something that is rooted in Brahmin and Hindu culture. So so then she decided to talk about caste, and this opportunity to write for this story gave her the opportunity to personify caste itself into a human form, and make him talk about several things. And then she talks about how within Manusmriti, the caste is looked at as a demon as well. It is caste is looked at as a human and demon as well, in the sense that for some, like Dalits or people who are the sufferers of caste system, it is a demon. And so all of these questions, she pretty much sums up her experience with these contradictions about caste system as well, and how she understands it, how she makes sense of it, and her reality of experiences as well. And she says that she got a chance to sort of engage with those questions and contradictions throughout that she faced throughout her life, to be able to explore those opportunities in this particular story, and that led to this story.
Yeah, thank you so much. You covered, I think, a lot of different points as well. I have a follow-up question. So, looking at Gogu ma'am's work, a lot of her work has elements of magical realism, especially when she describes nature, when she describes trees, the sea, the village. There are some elements of magical realism which are always interwoven into her stories. Like, they might be slice of life, but they will be described in a way that gives you a different perspective altogether. Science fiction, on the other hand, or speculative fiction, on the other hand, is usually a genre that privileges these advanced scientific and technological progresses or technological devices. But this approach is completely different, right? And again, the philosophy comes in that we want to question why the caste system has been naturalized. It is as much a man-made construct as other divisions in society. There are divisions in Japan, like there are divisions in South Korea, in other Southeast Asian countries. So the idea is to question how social stratification happens, and because the Indian caste system the Hindu caste system has a religious mandate interwoven into it, it complicates the structure altogether. So brilliantly put that the idea was to question it. But science fiction and speculative fiction is usually a genre which deals with speculative narratives. A lot of anti-caste work, on the other hand, has always privileged making sure that your voice is as authentic and as raw as possible. So especially when you're writing from within the community, lived experiences, realities, incidents need to be structured in such a way that your authentic voice is communicated. And that authenticity usually comes in with realist fiction, which is why autobiographies and short stories and even stories have so much importance within the community, within the anti-caste movement itself. So how do you think this cross-pollination would affect both sides, the science fiction and speculative fiction as a genre, as well as the anti-caste movement and the anti-caste literature? So what potentials do you see in this cross-pollination? Because I think a lot of other points have already been covered in terms of we want to question. And this is a short story that actually centers scientific rationality and scientific temperament as one of the main tenets of thinking of science fiction, which is a very different take in terms of how science fiction works. So Western science fiction will look at dystopic elements and talk about how these devices are marginalizing the marginalized further. But here we are talking about something so basic. We are talking about having a scientific temperament and a scientific rationality when we are talking about caste, when we are talking about all the concepts that caste germinates. For example, our birth charts, Hindu birth charts, all the doshas, all patrikas and kundlis and everything that comes under that purview. So how do you think what potential do you see in this cross-pollination, which is very different from what Western science fiction has been doing till now, or even Indian science fiction for that matter, because this was a definite game changer. The entire book is a game changer in the field.
That's an absolutely interesting question. You're essentially trying to say that the existing science fiction genre and the kind of literature that is produced in it is something that looks at advancement and development and that kind of a discourse, robots essentially at the center of it. But whereas when anti-caste sort of comes in contact with science fiction or speculative fiction, it's there's something else that is happening, and that's an absolutely interesting question. Even I would want to hear what Dr. Gogu has to say about this. And can you hear us, Dr. Gogu?
Yeah, I am hearing, but I am not able to see your videos. And also sometimes it's I didn't hear your voice. That's why.
That's all right. I will quickly repeat the question
Yes.
to you in Telugu, which is that science fiction law, science fiction law advancement and development alanti stories vastuntayi. Anti-caste literature law, yeah, we can see you now. Anti-caste literature law, there is an essential the part of it there's a lot of literature that talks about raw details, reality, and it brings out authentic voices kada. So anti-caste literature science fiction loki వెళ్ళినప్పుడు ఏం జరుగుతుంది అని essentially that's the question.
Actually, యాంటీ-కాస్ట్ సైంటిఫిక్ ఫిక్షన్లోకి వెళ్ళడము అని అంటే ఇట్స్ అ న్యూ ఎంట్రీ ఐ థింక్, బికాస్ దిస్ ఐడియాలజీ, కాస్ట్ ఐడియాలజీ దళిత్స్ని ఒక బబుల్లో ఉంచిందనమాట. సైన్స్లోకి ఎంటర్ కాకుండా, సొసైటీలోకి ఎంటర్ కాకుండా ఒక ఐడియాలజీ వీళ్ళని ఒక సగ్రిగేటెడ్ వెలివాడలో ఉంచింది. కానీ దళిత్ అనేది దళిత్ పీపుల్, హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్స్ అకార్డింగ్ టు సైన్స్, వాళ్ళు హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్స్, వాళ్ళకు మైండ్ ఉంది, వాళ్ళకు హిస్టరీ ఉంది, వాళ్ళకు ఫోర్ ఫాదర్స్ ఉన్నారు, వాళ్ళకు మదర్ ఫాదర్ ఉన్నారు, వాళ్ళకి ఇంకా బయట సొసైటీలో లేని ఒక నేటివ్ కల్చర్ ఉంది, ఇండియన్ నేటివ్స్ కల్చర్. అగ్రికల్చర్ ప్రొడక్షన్లో కానీ, వాటర్ బాడీస్, ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్, వీటన్నిటితో ఒక అటాచ్మెంటు ఒక ఆదివాసీలకు ఉండే లక్షణాలు దళిత్స్కున్నాయి. కాకపోతే ఊర్లు విలేజ్కి దగ్గరలో ఉండడం వల్ల వీళ్ళని ఆదివాసీలుగా ఉండరు, కానీ వీళ్ళదంతా కూడా ఆ రకంగానే ఉంది. అయితే విలేజ్లో చూపించే కాస్ట్ హైరార్కీ, కాస్ట్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్, కాస్ట్ అట్రాసిటీస్, కాస్ట్ హ్యూమిలియేషన్ ఏదైతే ఉందో దాన్ని ప్రతిసారి మాట్లాడడానికి స్కోప్ ఉండదు, అవకాశం ఉండదు. విలేజ్లో కాస్ట్ సిస్టము ఎట్లా ఉంటుందంటే దాన్ని కంపల్సరీ ఫాలో కావాలి అన్నట్టే గ్రామాల్లో ఉంటుంది. గ్రామాలలో సస్టైన్ కావాలి, సర్వైవ్ కావాలి, సర్వైవల్స్ ఆఫ్ కాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్. సర్వైవ్ కావాలంటే కొన్ని కాంప్రమైజ్ కావాలి, కాబట్టి స్లేవ్స్గా బతకాలి. ఈ స్పెక్యులేషన్ అనేది సైన్స్ ఫిక్షన్గా రాయడానికి చాలా స్కోప్ ఇచ్చింది. అది యాంటీకాస్ట్గా టర్న్ అయిందా, లేకుంటే దళిత్ నే సైన్స్ ఫిక్షన్గా తీసుకుంటున్నామా అనేది పక్కకు పెడితే, రెండిట్లో యాంటీకాస్ట్ ప్లస్ సైన్స్ ఫిక్షన్. ఎందుకంటే ఇది హ్యూమన్ హిస్టరీ, దళిత్ హిస్టరీ ఈజ్ ఎ హ్యూమన్ హిస్టరీ, దళిత్ రైట్స్ ఆర్ హ్యూమన్ రైట్స్. Dalits are human beings. Dalit working in the production. So in Indian Constitution rights దళిత్కు అప్లికబుల్ అయినప్పటికీ కాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్ నెవర్ అలౌ టు బెనిఫిట్ ద కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద బిగ్ స్ట్రగుల్. కాబట్టి కాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్ అనేది ఒక మైండ్ సెట్, ఐడియాలజీ, ట్రెడిషన్ ఇవన్నీ కలిపి ఒక దళిత్స్ సొసైటీని ఒక స్లేవ్లో పెట్టింది. కాబట్టి అదంతా రాయాలి అని అంటే స్పెక్యులేషన్ ఫిక్షన్ నేము ఒక టూల్గా యూజ్ చేసుకోవడానికి చాలా బాగా ఉపయోగపడ్డది. అందుకని దళిత్ యొక్క ట్రామా, దళిత్స్ యొక్క రెసిలియన్స్, దళిత్స్ క్వశ్చన్ అండ్ దళిత్ కల్చర్ అంతా కూడా ఇందులో పెట్టడానికి ఒక గొప్ప స్పేస్, వండర్ఫుల్ స్పేస్ ఇచ్చింది రాయడానికి. అట్లా అనుకుంటున్నా నేను. ఓకే, ఇప్పుడు ఇక్కడికి ఆపేస్తాను. తర్వాత ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్ ఉంటే తర్వాత.
Okay, thank you. So to responding to the question you posed, Preeti, she was talking about caste, which is man-made, and it is a construct that was created, and it's almost like a bubble that people put you in, and that sort of segregates you through segregation, through velibada, through historically by excluding you from certain spaces, be it science or otherwise. But on the other hand, if you look at the culture of Dalits and Adivasis and other Sabanda communities as well, you can see that their labor, their everyday life, their lifestyle, everything is connected or is surrounded by nature, agriculture, cultivation of agriculture, environment, animal rearing. All of these are things that is part of their everyday life. And that is also science, is what she's trying to say, right? And this scientific, there's a certain sense of there's a different definition of science that she's bringing to the table through this response and through her story as well. And she talks about how caste atrocities and humiliation in village spaces and rural spaces have led to a certain kind of survival regime, which kept Dalits in that bubble that she started off with. In that regard, she also says that speculative fiction genre, and within the space of science fiction, gives this a different kind of useful space that gave her the opportunity to talk about Dalit history. And she also asserts that Dalit history is nothing but human history, and Dalits are also human beings, and therefore it is absolutely important to talk about them, write about them. And this is something that is of course, there's a there was a lot of literature in Dalit literature, contributions of it, where people who have suffered, who are within the community, have been writing about their experiences, which is something that is connected to your question, where you're talking about raw, realistic, and authentic voice is at the center of it. But this is also this is almost like we're looking at history in the making, which is to say that Dalit writers are also participating in other genres and giving and publishing houses like BLAFT and editors who are interested in giving the space to other Dalit writers are encouraging them to come out of those spaces or giving them the space to explore these other kinds of storytelling practices. So therefore, she rightly asserts, identifies speculative fiction and that space as a tool, and very, very useful at that, to talk about her experimentation. Although she would essentially be talking about the same thing thematically, conceptually, but gives her the opportunity to play with not just character settings and plot, but also with this changing the gaze from Dalits internally to Brahmins, which is what happens in the story as well. You look at, through Kujadosham, you look at you look at Brahmin culture and the kind of things that happen over there, and through Shekhar's, one of the main characters, food practices and his dilemmas. You see you're interrogating the culture. So you see that shift that is happening. So that's the response.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have time for one more question, Nicole? Yeah, okay. So this will be my last question, but I think it's a very important question because the piece also sheds light on contradictions and paradoxes in navigating caste discussions. Like we see when Malini is having a discussion with Shekhar about reservations and representation, because that is often what gets misconstrued, that reservation seems to be a poverty alleviation scheme, whereas the idea is that reservation is about representation. It's about making sure that everybody has a seat on the table, which usually does not happen because of caste discrimination and caste privileges. So this piece sheds light on navigating these contradictions and paradoxes while navigating friendships as well. So again, friendships, romantic connections, romantic partnerships, discussions with family, this social space basically. So what do you think about the speculative format, the speculative fiction genre being conducive to these sort of discussions? Because Malini and Sugandhi are as from as opposing sections of society as they can be, and yet they are able to develop a deep friendship wherein they rely on each other, wherein they talk to each other, and that is what solidarity also ends up being at the end of the day. It's a deep friendship and love that you feel for your friends, for the people who surround you. So how do you think the speculative fiction genre would help navigate these sort of discussions? What potentials do you see here? And I know that there will not be any straight answer to this because it's all perspectives and subjectivities, but it's also a personal thing for me. So I would want to know what everyone thinks about this as well.
Yeah. Now, earlier, my concept is Brahmin women also human being. Friendship possible between human being. So that is also even within discrimination, young generation are showing some open mind to friendship, all circles. When atrocities and massacres happens, all other non-Dalit communities, including Brahmins, showed solidarity. They helped in the movement. Yeah, so some specific names also there in Telugu states. Personally, I have a friendship with when I studied in graduation, she's very much friend to me. We share everything. So it's a possible to friendship and sharing to everyone like me. I never feel she's a superior Brahmin. I never, for her, about her, I never feel she's a superior. For myself, I never inferior. I never inferior. So this mindset, making friendship, making gives environment and mindset to sharing and sharing views and eating food, playing games, reading stories. This gives, I think, this is also existing in the society. This is also important in the society. It should be come in the stories. It should be in the literature. It's not dream and speculation. It's a real, actually, but it's a small amount, small amount culture. We should give importance to small amount of cultures. So because it given important space and friendship in my life, there are also other disturbed my life, and they made me untouchable, discrimination, all that. That is the majority. This is the minor, tiny incidents, but it gives me strength. So I cope up with this strength. I stand by this strength against other humiliations and other. Yeah, strength is so important to human beings, Dalits as well. I think that's the human society's culture. If I said this, people never believes around my friends. Even Brahmin loves Dalit girl, people never believes. How can Brahmin loves Dalit girl? How can happen? How can friendship happen, Dalit and Brahmin? These questions posed. Exactly in that context, this speculation gives wonderful space to write around politics and stories around this. Yeah, I felt that. I weaved story around real incidents. Yeah. So,
Okay. All right. So a quick summary of her response is that your question begins with the conversation between Malini and Sugandhi, and especially in the context of reservation in terms of representation, and it's much. It's not just about giving access. It's not rooted in economy, but it's connected to representation and giving a seat on the table. And very rightly pointed out, and it is very well connected to her response in terms of how she points out that Brahmin women are also human beings, and it is not just to humanize them and allowing them to have this shared space between different human beings, irrespective of their caste, engage in friendships, but also on the other level, it is also humanizing them in terms of the narrative about them being divine beings. And so at another level, it is also to sort of articulate the fact that you see that Malini is the one who's also suffering at the end of it, through, even though she is of an upper caste, and there's a lot of suffering that Brahmin women face as well. So all of these complexities are something that she's encapsulated by calling them human beings as well. And she also talks about how the younger generation, and she also articulates the kind of movements that she was part of in Telugu states, where she had experienced herself personally friendships, allyships, and solidarity, where it helped her immensely. And that gave her the strength to sort of counter or deal with or engage with the darker side, which is let's say humiliation, shame, and she also talks about how, interestingly, about her own friendship with this one particular friend, where there is this shared space of intimate social space which accommodates friendships, romantic relationships, or intimate spaces, right? So of sharing food, of reading together, playing games, and making space for fun as well, not just strictly social. So this kind of space is very important, is what she was trying to say. And very interestingly, also, she says that I've never felt inferior, or I've never accepted the fact that she's superior, right? She's not made me feel that way. Most importantly, I have not taken it in that sense, and that sort of opened up this space to for an intimate relationship. So so in that sense, of course, this friendship is something that is inspired by real life, but small amount of culture. Like if you go into the story, you see that Sugandhi's culture, her parents, her family, all of that comes into the picture and beautifully lays out the history of their rich culture as well. So all of that, not just discrimination, not just untouchability that she had experienced, but she's also thinking that that of course is part of experience, but she's also channeling it through her own writing, where there is this a friendship, a social, intimate space has created strength, and that strength is very, very important. Is what she says.
I think
and gives her the opportunity to weave these stories. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that last line, right? It's the close friendships wherein your friends believe in you and tell you that you are capable of so much and you are so good and you are so awesome, and that shared love and understanding and belonging that you are able to cultivate by sharing your culture and sharing spaces with each other is what gives her that strength, what is able to produce strength in so many women to face the world outside, which is not being very kind to us right now. But yeah, I think it's a valid thing to end with, I guess. And I think now we can open it up for other question answers if anybody has any questions. Over to you, Nicole. Thank you so much, Dr. Gogu and Dr. Divya, for this. I was very, very happy with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much. That this has been really wonderful. And we have, I still have one question that I think I need to ask, but at the very end. So we have 2 questions in the live chat, and one is in English, right? So I'll read that out. And Divya, one is not. So I'll let you get your head around that. So people thank you, Gogu. And it says here, does knowing you are translating for a potentially international audience, does that affect the way you approach the process of translation itself, especially when global readers may recognize dystopia but not understand caste.
Divya. Yeah. Divya,
Yes. So it is talking about international audience, global readers, and the global readers do not have introduction to caste, right? But they recognize, or international readers, they recognize dystopia of some kind, but they don't understand caste. So the question essentially is, does knowing you are translating for a potential international audience affect the way you approach? So you were aware that this is something that is going to go to the international audience, and would that something change the way you write, is essentially what the question is about.
Yeah, especially since, for example, the short stories, the previous short stories where they had a Telugu life before they had an English life, whereas this story, I feel like, probably has more of an English life than a Telugu life, potentially.
Also the setting, urban and...
Yeah, exactly.
Divya.
Yes, so అర్థమైందా మీకు?
లేదు, నువ్వు కూడా ఇంగ్లీష్ లో చెప్తున్నావు అందుకే.
ఓకే సారీ సో ఐ వాస్ జస్ట్ నేనేమంటున్నా అంటే ఆ క్వశ్చన్ ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ఆడియన్స్ కి ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ఆడియన్స్ చదువుతారా అనేటప్పుడు మీరు డిఫరెంట్ గా రాస్తారా? ఎందుకంటే మీ పాత స్టోరీస్ రూరల్ సెట్టింగ్స్ లో ఉన్నాయి, అండ్ దట్ వాస్ కంప్లీట్లీ డిఫరెంట్, అండ్ యూ డింట్ నో, మీకు తెలీదు ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ఆడియన్స్ ఎవరు చదువుతారు, రీడర్షిప్ ఎలా ఉంటుంది అనేది తెలీదు. కానీ ఈ స్టోరీ మీకు ఐడియా ఉంది కదా, global readers, it will be distributed among international readers అన్నప్పుడు మీ రైటింగ్ లో ఏమైనా చేంజెస్ వస్తుందా? హౌ డు యూ అప్రోచ్ రైటింగ్? మీరు రైటింగ్ ఎలా అప్రోచ్ చేస్తారు ఆ టైంలో?
ఇది స్లైట్లీ చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ క్వశ్చన్ యాక్చువల్లీ. ఇది నేను కూడా అది ఆలోచించాను. ఇన్ ఇండియా చాలా థియరీస్ ఉన్నాయి. దెర్ ఇస్ సో మెనీ థియరీస్ అబౌట్ దళిత్స్. ప్రతి ఒక్క ఫిలాసఫర్ ఒక డెఫినేషన్ ఇచ్చిండు దళితులకి. అది చాలా మంది కంఫర్టబుల్గా, ఈవెన్ గ్లోబలీ అంటే ఇండియన్ బ్రాహ్మణికల్ గ్లోబల్ ఏదైతే క్యారీ చేస్తుందో అదే ఇది అవుతుంది, అక్కడ గ్లోబల్గా క్యారీ అవుతుంది. దళిత్ వాయిస్, దళిత్ పర్సెప్షన్ ఎక్కువ మట్టుకైతే కాలేదు. అది ఒక రకంగా అన్ఫార్చునేట్ థింగ్. కానీ అంబేద్కర్ 1916లోనే కాస్ట్ అండ్ జెనసిస్ అనే ఒక ఆర్టికల్ అద్భుతంగా రాసిండు. గ్లోబల్ రీడర్స్ అంబేద్కర్ను కూడా తక్కువ చదివినారు. ఇంగ్లీష్ రాకపోవడం అనే విషయం కాదు, ఏది ఎక్కువ ప్రాపగేట్ అవుతుంది అనేది కూడా కొంత దళిత్స్ని బ్రాహ్మణికల్ అప్రోచ్తో ఏంటి అని అంటే, ఒక సెల్ఫ్ రెస్పెక్ట్ అనేది కాకుండా సాలిడారిటీ, ట్రస్టీ, ప్యాట్రనైజేషన్, like giving name Harijan and demons, slaves, Velivadas, even Dalit name also kind of Dalit name. ఇవి ఎక్కువ ప్రాపగేట్ అయినప్పుడు నేను కొంత ఎక్కువ చదవలేదు, కానీ కొంత గమనిస్తున్నా. దర్బన్ కాన్ఫరెన్స్ నుండి ఇప్పటిదాకా గ్లోబలీ దళిత్స్ ఎట్లా పోర్ట్రే చేయబడుతుంది, దళిత్స్ కాస్ట్ సిస్టమ్ ఎట్లా పోర్ట్రే చేయబడుతుంది అనేది చూసినప్పుడు చాలా ఛాలెంజెస్ చాలా అనిపించింది. అందుకని ఏదైతే దళిత్ పర్సెప్షన్లో దళిత్స్ యాజ్ హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్స్, సొసైటీ, ఇగాలిటేరియన్ సొసైటీ, ఈక్వల్ సొసైటీ అనే పర్సెప్షను చిన్న డీటెయిల్స్ను కూడా దాన్ని ఎలాబరేట్ చేసి రాయాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది అనేది. అది ఎప్పుడు సరిపోతుంది అని అంటే దళిత్ లైఫ్ను రాసినప్పుడు, దళిత్ క్యారెక్టర్స్, దళిత్ లైఫ్ స్టైల్, దళిత్ మైండ్ సెట్, దళిత్ స్కిల్స్, దళిత్ ప్రొడక్షన్. ఈ దళిత్ అనే పదం కూడా ఇంటర్నేషనలీ ఫేమస్ కాబట్టి వాడాల్సి వచ్చింది. దళిత్ అని వాడకపోతే ఎవరనేది ఇంకా అర్థం కాదు కాబట్టి దళిత్ థింకింగ్, దళిత్ కల్చరు, దళిత్ హిస్టరీ, దళిత్ టాలెంట్, దళిత్ అటాచ్మెంట్ విత్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్, అటాచ్మెంట్ విత్ ల్యాండ్, అటాచ్మెంట్ విత్ అగ్రికల్చర్, ఇవన్నీ కూడా సైంటిఫికలీ గ్లోబలీ చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ అన్నమాట. కాబట్టి వాటి మీదనే ఫోకస్ పెట్టి రాయడం అనేది స్టోరీస్ దానికి చూశాను. ఇప్పుడు కొంత సీరియస్ ఇష్యూస్ తీసుకున్న సింపుల్గా స్టోరీ ఫామ్లో తీసుకోవడం. అట్లా బ్రాహ్మణ్, క్షత్రియ, వైశ్య అనే డివిజన్ నేను పక్కకు పెట్టి ఒక హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్స్ అనేదే తీసుకొని స్టోరీస్లో, అట్లా స్టోరీస్లో ఫ్రెండ్షిప్ కాంటెక్స్ట్, పర్టికులర్లీ విమెన్ ఫ్రెండ్షిప్, విమెన్ ఫ్రెండ్షిప్ రాయడానికి కూడా సిస్టర్హుడ్ అనే ఒక కాన్సెప్ట్ విదిన్ ఫెమినిజంలో సిస్టర్హుడ్ ఇట్స్ అ పాసిబుల్ బిట్వీన్ టూ కాస్ట్స్. కాస్ట్ అనేది హైరార్కీ, కానీ కాస్ట్ కాకుండా కమ్యూనిటీస్, నాట్ హైరార్కీస్, డైవర్సిటీ విదిన్ కమ్యూనిటీస్ అనేది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ కాన్సెప్ట్ దళిత్ పాలిటిక్స్లో ఉంది. కాబట్టి దాన్ని స్టోరీస్లోకి తీసుకుంటే ఒక స్కోప్ ఉంటుంది. ఇంక్లూజివ్నెస్, ప్రతి ఒక్కరిని తీసుకోవడానికి ఒక హ్యూమన్ రిలేషన్స్, హ్యూమన్ బీయింగ్ సొసైటీ, కల్చరలీ, ఎడ్యుకేషనలీ, ఎకనామికలీ, విదిన్ సొసైటీలో అన్ని ప్లేస్లలో ఉండడానికి, ఒక ఇంక్లూజివ్గా ఉండడానికి ఇది నేను ఎన్నుకోవాల్సి వచ్చింది. ఐ థింక్ గ్లోబలీ ఆల్సో people can understand this, what is the politics of caste, what is the perception of Dalits అనే దానికి ఇది పనికొస్తుందని నేను ఒక I don't know, this is a new kind of approach, but for me it's a new
Okay, thank you. So the response is not so much, the response doesn't simply address the question about whether she approaches her writing practice in a different way when she knows that it would be exposed to global readers, but but as a contrast, she was trying to say that there are certain experiences that are universal, right? So therefore, these universal experiences are something that she tried to bring in her writings. And for instance, she begins with and global readers are also something that is not a monolithic or a homogeneous entity, and we have Indian diaspora. We have so basically it's not it's diverse in terms of international readership as well. So the perception, representation, perception of Dalit voice is something that hasn't gone in the way, that has gone in an unfortunately in a very different way, not so positive way, something that she'd mentioned. So she was also recounting her experience of attending Durban conference, and until now, the portrayal of Dalits is something that is not always in the positive light. So therefore, she anchors to experiences that are universal, and therefore she talked about friendship, which is universal, sisterhood, which is an essential part of feminism. Friendship between women is something that is central to this particular story, and that is what she looks at, irrespective of who the reader is, in terms of these experiencing and the kind of perception, portrayal, and all of these are things that are that she says that she universalizes them in such a way that it is accessible to the global readers as well. And by focusing on inclusion is at the center of this.
Even Dalits and environment, Dalits and culture, Dalits and water bodies, Dalits and agriculture, these are all universal phenomena. Every in the world, wherever you go, there is agriculture. People eat food through agriculture. That is, with Dalits are experts in the agriculture. Yeah, these are all Dalit life should go globally, but earlier it's not there. Yeah, diaspora means it's they carries Brahminical idea of Brahminical hierarchies, Brahminical perception about Dalits, Harijan, untouchable, broken people from village. This is the carrying global. But there is also Ambedkar's perception from 1930s, the Round Table Conference, that debates are available. And before that, 1916, Caste and Genesis, who are Dalits. Yeah, this is also available for global. Yeah, it's there already. For me, it given strength. I decided that I should focus on everyday life of Dalits, Dalit beliefs, Dalit dreams, Dalit culture, Dalit food. Yeah, that is only my attention on that. So, and also inclusiveness with friendship. Yeah, there is also possible between two castes, between two caste women, Brahmin and Dalit. It's a possible because feminism is there, and Brahmins also human beings. That perception, I wrote friendship successfully in Malini and Sugandhi.
It's so interesting that we spoke mainly about those two, right? Because in some ways, the latter conversation between caste and our male protagonist, if you want, Shekhar, is also a really big thing, but we only spoke about the women. And I think that's really interesting, isn't it? That's just really interesting because in some ways they matter more rather than Sheikha, right? This little loser and this this kind of self-aware, but also very self-pitying caste, right? It's very interesting, very caste as a male character as well, I think. But I think we also want to kind of give the chance to kind of answer the question that was, I'm sure, posed in Telugu. So Divya, did you get a chance to look at it? And,
yes, I got a chance to look at it. I'm just going to read it out now. Thank you, Shyamala garu. Phantom Ladder lo kulam ni chala baga simple ga explain చేశారు. Ladder తో కంపేర్ చేయడం, కులంతో డైరెక్ట్ గా మాట్లాడడం, ఈ ఎలిమెంట్స్ ప్రెజెంట్ చేయడం వాళ్ళ బ్రాహ్మణిజం ఎలా ఈ కాస్ట్ ఐడియాలజీని యూనివర్సల్ గా ఫోర్స్ చేస్తుందో హైలైట్ చేశాయి. So this is just for the others. This is complimenting the writer for doing such a great job in using ladder to compare to kulam, which is caste. And followed by a short question which says, Telugu to English translation lo emaina miss ayyindani anipinchinda. So the translation to this is of the translation from Telugu to English. Did you feel as a writer that the translation had missed something in its translation? So that's a question.
Okay. Shall I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for first appreciation. Telugulo cheppina daniki. Yeah. I am laughing myself because బ్రాహ్మిన్స్ వాళ్ళకి వాళ్ళు చాలా గొప్పగా చెప్పుకుంటారు కదా, మేమంత గొప్ప ఇంత గొప్ప అని. గ్లోబల్గా చెప్పినా, ఇంకొక ప్లానెట్లో చెప్పినా, ఇంకెక్కడ చెప్పినా వాళ్ళు ఎంత గొప్ప అనేది సైంటిఫిక్ మైండ్స్ ఎక్కడైతుంటే వాళ్ళకి అర్థమైపోతుంది. ఎక్కువ కష్టపడాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. కాబట్టి సైన్స్ అనేది దళిత్ సబ్జెక్టుని చెప్పడానికి చాలా బాగా ఉపయోగించవచ్చు. అంతే, అదొకటి. అవి చాలా పాలిటిక్స్ ఉన్నాయి మామూలుగా. ఇన్ తెలుగు స్టేట్స్ అంటే వాళ్ళ శ్రమని దాచిపెట్టి దోచుకోవడం అనేది, వాళ్ళు ఎంత శ్రమ చేసినా ఆ శ్రమని మొత్తం దోచుకొని వాళ్ళ శ్రమను గుర్తించకపోవడం, అంటే ఆ వేతనం ఇవ్వకపోవడము, వాళ్ళ కల్చర్కు రెస్పెక్ట్ ఇవ్వకపోవడము, వాళ్ళ దేవతలకు రెస్పెక్ట్ ఇవ్వకపోవడం, వాళ్ళ దేవుళ్ళకు రెస్పెక్ట్, దేవుళ్ళకు కూడా ఆ దేవుళ్ళు కూడా ఇంతకుముందు శేఖర్ ఎందుకు అని అంటే ఈ బ్రాహ్మణికల్ దాంట్లో మొత్తం పురుష దేవుళ్ళే, అందరు దేవుళ్ళు పురుష దేవుళ్ళే. అక్కడ పవర్ఫుల్ దేవతలు ఎవరు ఉండరు. పవర్ఫుల్ గాడెసెస్ ఎక్కడ ఉంటారంటే మళ్ళీ విలేజెస్ దళిత్స్లోనే పవర్ఫుల్ గాడెసెస్ ఉంటారు. ఈ గాడెసెస్ అందరినీ కాపాడతారనమాట. ఆ విషయం తెలుసుకున్న బ్రాహ్మణ్ విమెన్ కూడా దళిత్ గాడెసెస్ని వర్షిప్ చేస్తుంది. కాబట్టి దళిత్ గాడెసెస్నే వర్షిప్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు దళిత్ విమెన్తో ఫ్రెండ్షిప్ చేయడం పెద్ద విషయం కాదు. అదనమాట. ఇంకోటి ట్రాన్స్లేషన్లో అంటే అది సడన్గా వర్డ్ టు వర్డ్, లైన్ టు లైన్ ట్రాన్స్లేషన్ కాదు కదా. చాలా గంటలు ఒక్కొక్క దాని మీద మాట్లాడుతూ డిస్కషన్ చేస్తూ అవన్నీ చేసిన ట్రాన్స్లేషన్. కాబట్టి ట్రాన్స్లేషన్లో ఏం మిస్ కాలేదు. నేను అనుకుంటున్న ట్రాన్స్లేషన్లో ఇంకా పవర్ఫుల్ వొకాబులరీ వచ్చిందని నేను అనుకుంటున్నా. తెలుగులో కంటే తెలుగులో కూడా ఉంటుంది, అది తెలంగాణ తెలుగులో చాలా పవర్ఫుల్గా ఉంటుంది. అదే మళ్ళీ సాంస్క్రిటైజ్ తెలుగు, ఆంధ్ర తెలుగులోకి వెళ్తే చాలా పూర్ అయిపోతుంది తెలుగు. కాబట్టి తెలంగాణ తెలుగు, ఇంగ్లీష్ రెండు పవర్ఫుల్గా ఉన్నాయి. అట్లా నా తెలంగాణ తెలుగుకి దివ్య ఇంగ్లీష్కి చాలా మంచి కనెక్షన్ వచ్చింది అట్లా స్టోరీ కూడా బాగా వచ్చింది ట్రాన్స్లేషన్ అనేది నా అభిప్రాయం.
Well, she responded to the compliment that listener gave in, and she added a few points to that by talking about how the labor that is essentially central aspect of Dalit lives is usually hidden, masked, invisibilized by the oppressors, and therefore one steals from them, by one robs them of not just of their in terms of economy, but also of their self-respect as well. And she also pointed out a few things like Dalit culture, Dalit gods, goddesses. All of these are not recognized by the oppressors, and it's very cultural and it's very subtle. It's something that is and it goes through a process of normalization. All of this is something that she had pointed out in response to the compliment by the listener. And then she goes on to answer the question about translation, to which she says that translation is not simply about word-to-word translation or line-to-line translation. It is a laborious process that both of us have gone through, which included hours and hours and lengthy discussions. And she thinks that it has come out really well in English with powerful vocabulary used in English. And she also very cheekily says that something that Telangana Telugu is very powerful, and English in its translation is also very powerful, as opposed to Andhra Telugu, where it is Sanskritized. So therefore, that translation would be very, very different, which I hopefully will not attempt to do. So yeah, that's the end.
You know, I got that when you said that in Telugu. Some things, you know, you just can understand from context, don't you? Even if you just pick up a few words. Well, thank you all so much. You know, I mean, this has been really, really wonderful. I know clearly we could keep talking and talking about this wonderful story. We've just scratched the surface with this story, haven't we? But, you know, it's also getting late. And Divya, you know, thank you so much. You know, we all see how hard also the translator works at all times, you know, and then thank you that, you know, this event couldn't have happened without you. But also I think Gogu and Divya, your relationship is so interesting, right? I mean, this story has come together through translation as well, right? I mean, it's fascinating. It's quite a unique, you know, way of how a story grew, also part of the anthology, right? And I think this also kind of shows how unusual the story is, right? I mean, we could just, as I said, we could go on and on talking about it because there's so many facets to it. It's still quite short, right? But there is so much to it. So thank you all so much. And so Gogu, as always, you know, I'm such a fan of your work, and I can't wait to to actually write about this short story as well, or this novelette. And Preeti, kind of thank you so much, you know, for organizing this, for creating the questions. It also, you know, it's often, sometimes people don't understand how much work goes into creating an event like this, right? So it just runs smoothly, even though the tech doesn't always allow us. But Anna, Alex, Yovchis, thank you so much for kind of still working with you know, when there were technical difficulties. So we apologize for them, but we did our very best. So thank you all so much. You know, it's been really wonderful. What a fabulous event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Preeti, for facilitating this wonderful discussion.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry for the technical disturbance, Alex, and bearing me a lot. Thank you, everyone. Nicole, Preeti, and Divya. Thank you so much. And two questions, interesting questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. The way that I was fangirling over the story, I think today it was just partially satisfied, but I'm sure our conversations will still continue in private capacity as well. But thank you for answering all my questions. And
Preeti, it's their novel. It's the big story they published. But in Telugu, In Telugu, it's 150 pages.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a continuous.
she's developed it into Telugu, and it's a bigger length, and she expanded it, and it's a novel now in Telugu.
Oh my God. I hope it gets published
Oh,
in its
excellent.
Yeah,
entirety.
in Telugu, it's soon,
Yeah.
publishing soon. Translation will later.
So
Yeah.
it's just a teaser, basically. Excellent. Oh, that
Yes,
makes me
thank you
so
so
happy.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
So more on this, watch this space. Right, see you later. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.